Straight to the Minister for Social Services, Scott Morrison, in our Canberra studio. He joins us now. Minister, good evening. Thanks for joining us on the show.
G'day, Paul. Good to be with you.
All right. What is harder? 8 out of 10 Australians working all week and all of their tax goes to pay for a welfare bill, of which if you cut, there'll be thousands of people screaming in the streets or stopping the boats.
Well, it's a very good question. I suppose I can give you the answer to that question a bit further down the track because we're just getting started in this portfolio now. And the question isn't really so much about how the $150 billion bill that we have in our welfare is reduced, but how the growth of it is managed. You're absolutely right. I said it in the Parliament the other week. 8 out of 10 income tax paying Australians who go to work every day do so just to pay for that bill. And I need to make sure that what they're paying for is doing what they want it to, and that's to help the people most in need and ensure that people aren't taking a loan of it.
So when we talk about arresting the growth, is that done through reducing the numbers of people who are claiming, or is it saying, okay, whoever's in the system now, fine, but the rules change for everyone starting this date here?
Well, it's a mixture of all of the above. I mean, let me go to the report that Patrick McClure brought down last week. Now, he talked about moving to a much more simple system, getting away from 20 different payments, 55 supplements, these sorts of things. Sorry, the other way around, actually, and condensing that down to a more simplified system. And that is, I think, a very worthy goal down the track. And if you do this sort of stuff over time, then you can actually manage its introduction and the impact that it has on everybody who depends on the system. But the argument I made at the press club last week is that if we don't start now, then the decision that has to be made down the track is actually, it's an over the edge of the cliff type decision, and I can guarantee you, I mean, that the losers in that set of circumstances will be quite disastrous. And I want to avoid that by starting now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that your point about 8 out of 10 people is so crisp. People get it. That is, full points for communication, because people get it no matter where they happen to be, boardroom, barbecues, whatever. They get it. However, we do have a scenario where the government has tried on at least half a dozen fronts to do what it thought was the right thing to arrest a big problem. The Senate kills it each and every time. Even if you have the facts on your side, the future fire that you're trying to put out, and even potentially a very large number of people who want you to succeed, how the heck do you find a path through a Senate that is being constantly rewarded by the opinion polls for saying no to everything, including last week they said no to mandatory jail terms for people who import guns?
Well, there's accountability in the debate, I think, Paul, and we make our case strongly, and what I'm particularly saying when I say 8 out of 10 income tax paying Australians going to work every day pay for the welfare system is I'm saying you have a stake in this. Those who have a stake in the welfare system aren't just those who receive the benefit and those who advocate on their behalf. Australian taxpayers have a stake in this, and I think Australian taxpayers are actually quite generous, and they support a system which helps people who are genuinely in need. And we're calling on them to assist us in this conversation to get a system which they can continue to pay for and will continue to deliver the outcome we want, but doesn't get completely out of control. And one of the things that I think contributes to a poor debate in this area is where everything is brought down to, well, who's better off and worse off in the next 5 minutes? I'm interested in who's better off and worse off in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, the next generation, who seem to be just completely ignored in a lot of the analysis that's made about these questions. Because I was talking to a student the other day, and they were, basically running through the get-up talking points with me on a whole range of issues. And I said to them, look, you're leaving university now. When you're 65, if we go down the approach that you're suggesting, there will not be an age pension. There will not be a disability support pension. Everything that our generation takes as a gift from the generation that went before us in terms of our safety net won't be there. And I just think that's not on. And I think there's got to be a bit of a wake-up call for all of us, whether it's in the government, on the opposition benches, on the cross benches, in the media and more generally, is we've got to have a debate around a welfare system which looks about how do we make this thing sustainable over not just the short term, but obviously for the long term. And I don't think we're there yet.
Is there one payment in particular that when you first got the briefing, when you first looked at the flowcharts, you went, This is nuts. This particular area is out of control. I mean, the age pension, you can't stop people getting older and needing that assistance. I mean, is it disability support? What is it? One of those 55, that spider's web of payments. Is there one that just makes you say, that might be a problem?
Well, one that has drawn my attention to it fairly quickly is the DSP. And the reason for that is there are people who genuinely rely on the DSP. And there's been a lot of changes to it over the years. And we now have a bit of a dog's breakfast of people who are on it because they got onto it 15, 20 years ago under one set of rules. And the rules for those to come on it now are much tougher. I mean, under us, you've got to go to a government doctor. The impairment tables are much stricter than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. And so you do have people who are receiving a payment who, frankly, aren't as impaired as those some of whom are trying to get onto it now. And I think there's a real disequity in all of that. And I think if I would compare the immigration system and the welfare system, I would do it in this way, Paul. One of the reasons why people wanted us to stop the boats, and there were many, obviously deaths at sea and all of those issues which we're very committed to. But one of it was they wanted to have confidence in the immigration system and they thought it was being taken a loan of. Now, I want Australians to feel confident about their welfare system. I want them to feel that when they go to work and pay taxes, that those who are getting welfare dollars are fair income, which I believe the absolute majority are, the overwhelming majority are, but the system itself is trying to help those who we want to help most. Now, integrity is key to that, just like integrity on the borders was key to that challenge. And if we can achieve something similar here in the welfare space, then I'd be happy.
I'm happy to keep talking about it all night. I know you've got other things to do. So, David Spears, we'll cut our camera if I don't ask you two questions about what people in Canberra want to know about. Do you get annoyed when you open the newspaper and you hear about a leak from a cabinet meeting of which you were in the night before? Because you know what was said, you know what was true, what wasn't true. Does it annoy you?
Of course it does. Of course it does, and it's not helpful, and it doesn't happen anywhere near as often as people think, because many times when people write this stuff, they're just making it up. And it's the basis of second and third hand gossip, which is, you know, a bit of a pastime down here, as I think you know, Paul. And frankly, I would say to people, don't believe everything you read for a start. But you know, when it does happen occasionally, it is frustrating because it doesn't help us do the job that we're trying to do. We actually are quite a strong team, and we have achieved a lot. We've got a lot more to achieve, and as the Prime Minister has said, you know, we've had a bit of a bumpy road of late, but I think we're really getting through that now, and I think people are really starting to focus on Bill Shorten. He says it's the year of idea. Finally, a light bulb went over above his head this week, but guess what? The only idea he's had is a tax. Who'd be surprised about that?
Yeah.
But that's where Bill Shorten is.
All right, last one here. Paul Sheehan on the show spoke about it on Friday, wrote about it in the column, and I have no doubt it turned up in your media monitoring file on Monday if you did not seek out the paper yourself. There seems to be a theory of Scott Morrison man through the middle. Forget your Bishop, forget your Turnbull, all the rest of it. Morrison through the middle. Is there any way you would entertain being the man through the middle, or do you want to kill it right now?
Well, I'm just not interested. I mean, I'm interested in doing the job I've got, and I'm interested in supporting the Prime Minister in the task that we have. And it's simply this. We want to set people up to succeed, whether it's to set people up who are on welfare to get off welfare, people who are in a small business to make it work, families to be able to get ahead by keeping two people in an income when that's what they need to get ahead, and to provide those opportunities. So, look, that's where I'm at. I mean, what I do is I just get on and do my job, Paul. I let others commentate, and if they want to say flattering things, which is nice on occasion, if they want to throw shoes at me, they'll do that. And that's up to them. But, mate, I'll just get on with it. And I've been given a big job by my boss, and my head is down, my tail is up, and I'm going hard.
Well, may it be 2 from 2 in terms of successes that you have as a minister. I want to talk to you all the way through this fight. Good on you, mate.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be with you.
Scott Morrison, nice to talk to him this Tuesday night. Straight over the panel in a moment. I know we're running late, but big things to deal with there with the Minister. More in a sec. We're live across the country, only on Sky News.